My granddaughter grabbed my hand so tightly that morning, her fingers were shaking. Nobody else noticed, not my daughter, not the nurse waiting beside the car. Then she leaned close to my ear and whispered 5 words that still wake me up at night. Grandma, don't trust my mom. Less than an hour later, they drove me away from my own house, and I realized I hadn't been told the whole truth. I was 76 years old, and I had lived in that little brick house in Dayton, Ohio, for 43 years. My husband, Harold, died in the back bedroom with my hand on his chest and a rainstorm tapping against the windows. After that, I kept the house clean, paid my taxes, cooked on Sundays, and tried not to become a burden to anybody. My daughter, Claire, used to say she worried about me. She said it softly at first, then she started saying it in front of people, like I was a problem everyone had agreed not to mention. She'd pat my arm and say, Mom gets confused sometimes. Even when I had just corrected her on a bank statement she didn't think I understood. That morning, she stood in my kitchen wearing perfume too strong for daylight, holding a folder against her chest. The nurse beside the car wasn't from any doctor I knew. Her badge said Patient Transition Coordinator, which sounded polite enough to hide something ugly. Just a short evaluation, Claire said. A few days, maybe a week. My granddaughter Lily, 17 and pale as paper, stared at the floor. Her eyes were red, but she wouldn't look at her mother. When I asked where exactly they were taking me, Claire smiled like I had embarrassed her. Mom, please don't start. We talked about this. No, I said. You talked. I listened. That was when Claire's face changed. Not much, just enough for me to see the woman underneath the daughter. Cold, tired, angry that I was still standing in her way. She leaned close and whispered, You can make this dignified, or you can make it humiliating. Then she took my purse from the chair before I could reach it. I looked at Lily, and she shook her head so slightly I might have missed it. The nurse opened the car door. Claire guided me by the elbow like I was already gone in the mind. As we pulled away, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Hanley, watching from behind her curtains. I wanted to wave, I wanted to scream, but Claire had my phone, my purse, and my house keys. On the seat beside her was that folder. Across the top, in black ink, I saw a title Lily had printed from the computer the night before for some school project, or so I had thought. My granddaughter whispered, Don't trust Mom, right before they took me away. Only it wasn't a school project. It was clipped to a legal document with my name on it. The place they brought me to sat outside Columbus near a stretch of highway lined with gas stations and dead winter grass. Rosewood Behavioral Residence was written on a wooden sign out front like it was some kind of country inn instead of a locked memory facility. Locked. I noticed that before Claire even finished parking the car. You said evaluation, I told her quietly. It is an evaluation. Then why are the doors locked from the outside? The nurse answered before Claire could. For resident safety. Resident. Not patient. Not guest. Resident. I felt something cold settle into my stomach. Inside, everything smelled like bleach and canned soup. A television played too loudly in the corner while 3 elderly women sat motionless in wheelchairs, staring at nothing. One of them kept rubbing her hands together over and over like she was trying to wash away invisible dirt. Claire signed papers at the front desk without letting me see them. Can I read what you're signing? I asked. You'll just upset yourself. I'm already upset. That made the receptionist glance up for half a second. Claire noticed it too and immediately softened her voice. My mother gets agitated, she said with a tired smile. That's why the doctor recommended temporary placement. Placement. Like I was furniture. I stood there humiliated while strangers nodded sympathetically at my daughter as though she were some exhausted saint dragging around a difficult old woman. Then Claire took me down a hallway and opened the door to a tiny room with one bed, one chair, and a narrow window that barely showed the parking lot. "You packed my things?" I asked. "A few essentials." There was a single suitcase sitting beside the bed. Not my suitcase. Mine was blue. This one was gray. I opened it immediately. Sweatpants, cheap slippers, 3 cardigans that weren't mine. No family photographs, no jewelry, no address book, no checkbook, no dignity. "Where are my things?" Claire crossed her arms. "Mom, you don't need all that right now. My husband's watch was in my dresser. You don't wear it. That wasn't your decision." For a second, something flashed across her face. Irritation, maybe guilt, but it disappeared fast. "You'll settle in after a few days." "No," I said, "I won't." The room went quiet. Then she lowered her voice. "You really want to do this in front of staff?" I stared at her. "Do what?" "Act unstable." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because it hurt my feelings, but because I suddenly understood the trap. Every objection I made became proof against me. Every question became confusion. Every tear became instability. I sat slowly on the edge of the bed, trying not to let her see the panic rising in me. Claire relaxed immediately once I stopped talking, like she'd won something. Then she kissed the top of my head. I almost recoiled. "I'll come tomorrow," she said softly. But Lily hadn't moved from the doorway. She looked sick. Finally, Claire snapped, "Lily, come on!" My granddaughter looked at me with tears sitting in her eyes. Then, while her mother's back was turned, she slipped something beneath my pillow. A folded piece of paper. Claire never saw it. But as they walked out, I heard them arguing quietly in the hallway. "You lied to me," Lily whispered. Claire's voice turned sharp instantly. "You need to stop being dramatic." Then the door shut, and a few seconds later I heard the lock click from the outside. I waited nearly 10 minutes before touching the paper Lily hid under my pillow. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unfold it. "Grandma, Mom told the doctors you signed papers months ago. I looked in her office and found copies. I don't think you signed anything. Please don't tell her I told you. She gets scary when she's angry." And then, underneath that, one more sentence written smaller than the rest. I heard her talking to Uncle Ben about selling the house. I read it 3 times. Selling the house. My house. The one still filled with Harold's books and my wedding china and every photograph I had left of my life. I suddenly understood why Claire had taken my purse, why she rushed me there, why she kept calling me confused in front of strangers. My daughter wasn't trying to help me. She was building a case. A nurse came in around dinner with a plastic tray, holding gray turkey slices and watery potatoes. She spoke slowly to me in the same voice people use with toddlers. "And how are we feeling tonight, sweetheart?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because humiliation gets so deep, eventually it becomes absurd. "I'd like to call my attorney," I said. Her smile faded slightly. "Family requests usually go through administration for the first 72 hours. Family requests, not my requests." I pushed the tray away, untouched. That night, I barely slept. The woman across the hall screamed every hour for someone named Robert. Another resident wandered into my room at midnight wearing only a hospital gown. An aide gently redirected him without even seeming surprised. At around 2 a.m, I heard voices outside my door. Claire's voice. I froze. "She keeps asking questions," she whispered. A man answered quietly. "That's normal in early stage decline." Decline. Claire sighed dramatically. "You have no idea what I've dealt with. She forgets bills, gets paranoid, accuses people of stealing." That was a lie. I handled my own finances better than she handled hers. Then the man asked, "Did she formally transfer property authority yet?" Silence. A long silence. Finally, Claire said, "Not completely, but we're close." Close. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might faint. This wasn't panic anymore. This was strategy. I waited until their footsteps disappeared before I cried, and even then I buried my face in the pillow so nobody would hear me. The next morning, they brought me to a conference room with fake flowers and stale coffee. A thin man in glasses introduced himself as Dr. Feldman. He asked simple questions first: dates, names, the president, my birthday. I answered everyone correctly. Claire sat beside him, taking notes like she was part of the staff. Then he asked, "Do you feel safe living alone?" Before I could answer, Claire let out a tired little breath. That tiny performance irritated me more than anything else. "Yes," I said firmly. "I've lived safely alone for 13 years. Dr. Feldman nodded slowly. "Your daughter mentioned increasing confusion. My daughter also mentioned temporary evaluation. Then she locked me in this facility." Claire immediately jumped in. "Mom, nobody locked you up." I looked directly at the doctor. "The doors require staff codes." He shifted uncomfortably. Claire touched his arm lightly. "You see what I mean? She fixates on things." Fixates. I stared at my own child and suddenly remembered something Harold once told me years ago after Claire lied about breaking a neighbor's window. "She doesn't fear doing wrong," he'd said quietly. "She fears consequences." At the time, I thought he was being too harsh. Sitting in that room, I realized he hadn't been harsh enough. Then Dr. Feldman opened a folder. Inside were documents with my signature on them, or something pretending to be my signature. And for the first time since they brought me there, I got truly afraid. I knew immediately the signatures were fake, not because they were terrible. Claire had practiced. That was the frightening part. The loops looked almost right. The slant was close. But I've signed my name Margaret Whitmore for 54 years. You know your own handwriting the way you know your own face, and that wasn't mine. I picked up the papers carefully. "Where did you get these?" Claire answered too fast. "You signed them at home." "No, I didn't." Her expression changed instantly into wounded patience. She looked at Dr. Feldman like mothers do when a child throws a tantrum in public. "Mom, please." That word suddenly sounded poisonous coming from her. I looked at the doctor again. "Those signatures are forged." The room became very still. Claire gave a quiet laugh under her breath. "This is exactly what I was worried about." I felt heat rise into my face. "She's lying." "Mom, she is lying." Dr. Feldman adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Whitmore, these documents appear notarized." "I don't care if the Pope notarized them. I didn't sign them." Claire leaned forward softly. "You don't remember because you were upset after your fall." I stared at her. "What fall?" There it was, just a tiny hesitation. Tiny, but real. "You slipped in the garage 2 months ago," she said carefully. No, I didn't. Another pause. Then Claire actually reached over and patted my hand. That almost broke me. Not the lies, the performance, the fake tenderness while she tried to erase my mind in front of strangers. I pulled my hand away so sharply, the chair scraped across the floor. You are trying to steal my house. Dr. Feldman straightened immediately. Mrs. Whitmore. She emptied my room. She took my purse. She isolated me. Now she's showing forged property documents. Claire's eyes filled with tears so quickly it was almost impressive. I knew this would happen, she whispered, and suddenly the entire room tilted toward her. The grieving daughter, the exhausted caretaker, the poor woman dealing with her unstable elderly mother. I saw it happen in real time. That was the moment I understood how dangerous appearances can be. Dr. Feldman lowered his voice. Margaret, sometimes paranoia can feel very real. Paranoia. I nearly laughed again. A lifetime paying taxes, raising children, balancing checkbooks, surviving funerals, illnesses, layoffs, miscarriages, and now a man 30 years younger than me was calmly explaining my own reality back to me like I was senile. Claire dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. I'm just trying to protect her. Protect me. From my own home. Then the doctor asked the question that chilled my blood. Would you be willing to authorize temporary financial oversight while we continue evaluation? There it was. Not concern. Not safety. Control. I looked directly at Claire, and for 1 second, just one, her face lost the performance completely. No sadness, no worry, only calculation. Then somebody knocked hard on the conference room door. A young aide stepped inside, looking nervous. There's someone here insisting to see Mrs. Whitmore. Claire immediately stood. No visitors. The aide swallowed hard. She says she's family. Claire frowned. Who? The girl looked directly at me. Her granddaughter. Claire's face went white, and before anyone could stop her, Lily walked into the room holding a thick manila envelope against her chest. Grandma, she said shakily, I found more. Claire moved toward Lily so fast her chair nearly tipped over. What are you doing here? Lily flinched, not dramatically, not like a spoiled teenager, like somebody used to getting cornered. I'm talking to Grandma. You had no right to come here. I had every right. Her voice shook, but she stood her ground. That frightened Claire more than anything else. I could see it. The envelope in Lily's hands looked thick, overstuffed with papers. Claire stared at it like it was a weapon. Dr. Feldman stood awkwardly between them. Maybe everyone should calm down. No, Lily snapped suddenly. You should read this. She slammed the envelope onto the table. Papers spilled everywhere, bank statements, property records, emails, and right on top, a printed listing agreement for my house. Already prepared for sale. My knees nearly gave out. The date on the document was from 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks before they brought me there, before any so-called evaluation. Claire lunged for the papers, but Lily grabbed them first. You told me it was temporary, Lily said, voice cracking. You said Grandma needed rest. Claire's mask was slipping now, fast. This is none of your business. She's my grandmother, and I'm your mother. The room went dead quiet. Lily's hands trembled as she pulled out another sheet. I found these in your office. She handed them directly to Dr. Feldman. His expression changed as he read, then changed again. Mrs. Whitmore, he said slowly, These documents indicate active plans to liquidate assets prior to cognitive determination. Claire immediately stepped forward. That's being taken out of context. But nobody was listening to her anymore. Lily looked at me with tears running down her face. "She didn't just bring you here," she whispered. "She's been planning this for months." Claire snapped. Not loudly at first. Just enough for the real voice underneath to come out. "You have no idea what this family costs me." I stared at her, and suddenly, everything connected. The expensive vacations, the hidden debt Harold warned me about years ago, the second mortgage she swore she'd paid off, the constant pressure about downsizing. Claire started pacing now, breathing hard. "You think I wanted this?" she said. "Do you know how much money I've spent cleaning up everyone else's messes?" "You forged my name," I whispered. Her eyes flicked toward me, and she didn't deny it. That was the worst part. Not even shame. Just frustration that things had become inconvenient. Dr. Feldman slowly removed his glasses. "Claire, did your mother knowingly authorize these transfers?" Silence. Then Claire made a terrible mistake. She looked directly at me and said, cold as ice, "You weren't even using the house anymore." I felt something inside me collapse. Not my pride, not my anger, something deeper. The last surviving piece of motherhood that still wanted to protect her. Gone. Lily backed away from her own mother like she was seeing a stranger. "You said Grandma was confused," she whispered. Claire laughed bitterly. "Oh, please, she's 76 years old and sitting alone in a giant house talking to dead people." I froze. Nobody knew about Harold, about me sitting beside his chair sometimes at night, about talking out loud when I missed him. I had told Claire that privately years ago, and now she was using it against me. The humiliation burned so hard my chest hurt. Then Lily said something so quietly the whole room leaned in to hear it. "You're the cruelest person I've ever known." Claire slapped her. Hard. The sound cracked through the conference room like a gunshot. For 1 second, nobody moved. Lily held her cheek, staring at her mother in complete shock. And Claire looked horrified at herself. Not guilty. Caught. Nobody spoke after the slap. Not me. Not Dr. Feldman. Not even Lily. Claire stood frozen beside the table, her hand still half raised like she couldn't believe what she'd done. The red mark on Lily's cheek spread slowly under the fluorescent lights. Then Lily stepped backward, away from her mother, away from all of it. "I'm done," she whispered. Claire finally found her voice. "Lily, sweetheart, don't call me that." The hatred in Lily's voice scared even me. Dr. Feldman cleared his throat awkwardly. "I think perhaps we should contact administration and—" "No," I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. I stood slowly from the chair. My knees hurt. My back hurt. My whole body felt 100 years old suddenly, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm leaving." Claire blinked rapidly. "Mom, you can't just—" "I can." Dr. Feldman looked deeply uncomfortable now. He kept staring at the forged papers spread across the table. "I think," he said carefully, "there may need to be a reevaluation of the admission process here." Claire turned toward him sharply. "You believed her delusions 5 minutes ago." His face hardened a little at that. That was before evidence of fraud entered the discussion. Fraud. The word finally landed in the room with its full weight. Claire looked cornered for the first time in her life. Then her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again, immediately, and again. Finally, she snatched it up. "What?" Silence. I watched the color drain from her face. What do you mean frozen? Another silence. Then, no, don't do anything until I get there. She hung up slowly. Nobody asked. We already knew. The accounts, the house. Something had finally collapsed outside that room. Claire looked at me then, and for a second she seemed small again. Not powerful, not manipulative, just desperate. Mom, she said softly, please don't do this. I almost answered her. Almost. Then I looked at Lily standing there holding her cheek, trembling and heartbroken, and I realized something terrible. Claire wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing everything else. I walked toward the door. Lily followed instantly. Behind us, Claire's voice cracked for the first time. You're really leaving me alone? I stopped with my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't turn around because suddenly I remembered being 26 years old, standing in my kitchen with a bruised lip after Claire's father lost his temper during an argument. I remembered little Claire watching silently from the hallway while I lied and told her I'd slipped. And all at once I understood. This hadn't started with forged signatures, or greed, or the house. It started decades ago. With the things I stayed silent about, I opened the door, and that was when 2 police officers stepped into the hallway, asking for Claire Whitmore by name. Some stories end quietly, but the damage stays with people for years. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment below. And subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one.